Have you ever just sat and watched a baby trying to figure something out? You know that look, that intense focus, the little grunt of effort, and then that flash of pure joy when they get it? It really makes you wonder, what is going on in there? What's the secret sauce that actually builds a mind from scratch? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating idea from Dr. Stanley Greenspan that says the answer might be in a place we don't usually look: our feelings.
So let's kick things off with a question that honestly might feel a little backwards at first. I mean, we're all taught to keep our emotions out of it, right? To think with our heads, not our hearts. But this idea, it asks us to completely flip that around. What if our feelings aren't some distraction from clear thinking, but are actually the very foundation that makes thinking possible in the first place?
To really see how this could work, we're going to look at autism, but through a totally new lens. For a long time, the focus has been on a whole collection of different challenges. But instead of just making a list of symptoms, let's try to see if there's an underlying connection and see if a whole new picture starts to emerge.
So, typically when we think about autism, a bunch of things come to mind. Maybe challenges with social interactions or the back and forth of a conversation. And it's totally natural to see these as separate, distinct issues. But what if they're not? What if all of these things actually trace back to one single, much more fundamental source?
And that brings us to the core of Dr. Greenspan's big idea. He suggested that the key wasn't in all those higher-level cognitive skills themselves, but in something way more basic: affect. And that's just a word for our emotions, our intentions, that inner feeling of wanting or needing to do something.
He called it the affect diathesis hypothesis. Now, I know that sounds complicated, but think of it like this. Your emotions are the spark. They're the intent to do something. But for that spark to actually start a fire, it has to connect to the kindling. And the kindling is your ability to plan, to move, to speak. This hypothesis suggests that for some people, there's a biological hiccup in making that connection happen. It's not about a lack of feeling. It's about a bottleneck between feeling and doing.
And you see, this perspective completely reframes the whole conversation. Instead of seeing the main issue as, say, a problem with complex social skills, it suggests the real challenge starts way earlier, with the fundamental wiring that links our inner drive to our outer actions.
This really simple, everyday example shows you exactly what that connection looks like in real time. For that toddler to get the toy, their feeling of, "I want that," has to organize a whole chain of events. Grab dad's hand, pull him across the room, point a finger. Their desire is literally the engine driving that entire multi-step plan.
So what happens when that connection isn't working so well? Well, as Dr. Greenspan put it, without that inner emotional compass giving an action a purpose, the action itself can kind of become unmoored. It might get repetitive or seem aimless. And that really helps explain some of the behaviors we sometimes see when that emotion-action link is struggling to fire. Okay, now this is where the idea gets so much bigger than just a single diagnosis. This is really a theory about how all of us learn and grow. It's about the very architecture of every human mind.
And this is the absolute core of the work. That link between what we feel and what we do isn't just one piece of the developmental puzzle. It's the master architect. It lays the entire foundation for how we think, how we connect with other people, and how we build our whole understanding of the world.
And that architect builds in stages, starting with the simplest things. First, a baby's emotional interest in a parent's face. That interest then fuels the first back and forth interactions, a smile that gets a smile back. And over time, those simple little exchanges grow into these long, complex chains of problem solving. And then finally, it's emotion that breeds meaning into abstract things, like words and ideas. Every single new level is built right on top of the emotional foundation that came before it.
Here's a really powerful way to picture it. Our emotions, they're the engine. They provide the fuel, the energy. Our actions, what we do, that's the vehicle that moves us around. And healthy development, that's the whole intricate process of building and strengthening the transmission that connects the two. All right, there's a really important distinction we have to make right here. And it's one that pushes back against some very old and frankly very harmful stereotypes about autism and emotion.
Let's get clear on two words: engagement and reciprocity. So, engagement is all about the capacity to feel. It's the warmth, the joy, the deep connection you have with someone you love. Reciprocity, on the other hand, that's more of a skill. It's the back and forth dance of communication, reading the cues, taking turns, navigating the whole flow of an interaction.
And here's why this is so important to understand. These two things are not the same at all. Dr. Greenspan saw over and over that many children on the spectrum have a profound capacity for love and connection. Their ability to engage is totally there. The challenge is often in that fast-paced, complex social negotiation that reciprocity demands.
And what this means is that the old damaging idea that people with autism are somehow less capable of love is, based on decades of actual clinical work, just wrong. It confuses a difficulty with the mechanics of an interaction for a lack of feeling. And that's a huge mistake we just can't afford to keep making. So, okay, this is a pretty compelling theory, but what does it actually mean in the real world? Why is it so important to reframe our thinking this way?
Well, it matters because it changes everything about how we might offer support. The goal suddenly shifts away from just teaching rote skills and towards strengthening that core connection between emotion and action. This is really the heart of a model called DIR/floor time, which uses spontaneous, joyful, playful interactions to help a child climb that same developmental ladder we just saw, but at their own pace.
This makes it a really different kind of approach from some of the more traditional behavioral methods. And while those methods can be super effective at teaching specific skills, a developmental approach like this one is way more focused on building the underlying capacity for spontaneous, flexible, and creative thinking. The goal isn't just to learn a script, it's to learn how to improvise.
So, I'll leave you with a question to carry with you. If this view is right, if our emotional lives truly are the bedrock of our minds, what does that mean for how we help all children learn and grow? It suggests that maybe, just maybe, the most important lessons aren't about facts and figures at all, but are found in that rich, messy, joyful dance of human connection. Thanks for joining me.